Do you think Hollywood is racist?
Yes.
Yes?
Well, what else is new?
When you think about movies, what's the first word that comes to mind?
Hollywood?
Hollywood.
Hollywood.
Welcome to Hollywood.
We'll be blacklisted in Hollywood.
Hollywood, a place known for making dreams come true. From its inception, Hollywood was a place that had long exerted a powerful influence of American ideology. As moving images reflected our world, they also shared a prophetic vision, a magic mirror of the way that things are and the way things should be. But as American ideals typically go, this collective vision deteriorated into blindness, a cracked mirror of more than 100 years of bad luck, with the entertainment industry a spitting image of the roots from which it was created. The greed, vanity, pride, and ego fathered by suits treating artists like property, it's directly linked to the buying and selling of bodies that our country was founded upon. And there is nowhere that is more apparent than the state of Black Hollywood today.
A lot of stuff that's on today is coonery and buffoonery.
I don't have to think about it. I've lived it. I've been the guy at the Oscars without my name being called.
And I'm number one on the call sheet. And then I have to go in and I have to hustle for my worth.
So many times, for the sake of diversity on network television, there's gonna be a black guy or, a Latino guy.
I'm just tired of working so hard, being gracious at what I do, getting paid a fraction of the cost.
Hollywood, too, is a propaganda machine. Mm-hmm. It's not only, just worrying about dollars and cents. Mm-hmm. It's worrying about ideas, images.
When that show ended, it seemed like the industry was determined to present the antithesis of it on everything that it did.
Yes.
A role that Ryan Gosling could play, I don't see why I shouldn't be considered for if race isn't an issue.
My work spoke for itself. And that's what we all want. We want to just be judged in this business just from our skill set.
As we walk through the history of Black representation in cinema, the barriers, limitations, stereotypes, and tropes that have plagued our depictions, I'd ask you to consider this complex web that holds all of this together. Financial pressures, struggles for agency, and lack of creative autonomy, we have to consider all sides for better, more nuanced storytelling. The goal of this video is not to demonize or generalize the actions of a few, but rather to contextualize the layers that make up this cycle of frustration and outrage towards one-dimensional pictures of Black life. And even for non-Black people, this is critical. In pushing back against normalizing stereotypes, we also illuminate the path to stop repeating the patterns that eventually apply to other groups. We understand that being disempowered by this cycle does not lead to meaningful change. It leads to repetition. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. That's the definition of insanity. So if you're ready to challenge your mind, welcome to the self-inflicted wounds of Black Hollywood. This discussion is one that I've had variations of over the last few years, especially as I consider the state of media and my own aspirations in filmmaking. I had been a stage actor for many years, did tons of shows, and I was really making that transition into film. But after receiving my 20th or so audition request for the sassy Black friend or the angry Black woman, slave number 2, baby mama number 5, I didn't want to do it anymore.
But the actor is in fact Black, right?
I had a sobering realization. I could not change the way this industry sees me. I was angry because my gift as a performer and the purpose that I had to be a voice for the voiceless, none of it mattered to this industry behemoth because of my type, my voice. It didn't fit what they thought I should be. I could become bitter about things that were outside of my control and give up, or I could think deeply and strategically about the why behind this. Why are we seeing the same movies full of stereotypes again and again? Why do Black artists agree to participate in these projects? How are these depictions problematic rather than a barometer for issues in our community? And who's responsible for greenlighting this, and what do they want us to become by consuming it? Once I started to consider these questions, I realized this was way deeper than bad movies on Tubi. This is strategic, systemic, and pervasive. And if we're willing to look through Black Hollywood's past up to now, we might be able to understand how we got here, have less knee-jerk reactions to what comes out, and invest in producing what we want to see on a large scale. We'll start with the history of Black representation. Something Good, Negro Kiss. It's a silent film from 1898. A short clip that shows a couple kissing and holding hands, believed to depict the earliest on-screen kiss involving African Americans. It was progressive, not only for the Black joy, but also for breaking away from racist caricatures that were common during this time. Blackface and minstrel shows were a form of entertainment, where white actors blackened their faces to mimic enslaved Africans on plantations, with the popular Jim Crow character developing around 1830. These depictions of Black people as childlike, lazy, hypersexual, criminals, and cowards were used to justify slavery and the mistreatment of African Americans. Caricatures such as the Mammy, Jezebel, Sambo, Uncle Tom, and others had a lasting influence on the stereotypes we see today. However, there was pushback from Black people about their own representation, most notably with the mixed reception of performers Stephen Fetchit, Louise Beavers, and Juanita Moore in more stereotypical roles. As characterized by Jalen Thomas Robinson, seeing the presence of Black performers on screen spurs a double-sided outcome for representation. On the one hand, early filmmakers, they were faced with limited opportunities, exclusion in the creation of their stories. Stereotypes and all, if there was going to be any opening for the door for future entertainers, they were going to take one for the team. Hattie McDaniel is one such example after her Oscar win in 1939, where she faced scrutiny for her Mammy role in Gone with the Wind.
Sincerely hope I shall always be a credit to my race and to the motion picture industry.
On the flip side, though, there were artists who wanted to maintain integrity outside of the damaging depictions. Born to former slaves, director Oscar Micheaux created 44 films over his career, with his earliest surviving film, Within Our Gates, negating the critically acclaimed and racist The Birth of a Nation. But even he was heavily criticized on representation after his film Body and Soul portrayed a false teacher, a con artist posing as a pastor. It's so good that we've moved on from these highly unrealistic stories, huh? Now, Micheaux argued that realism and not some false ideal was the key to the progress of the race. He said the recognition of our true situation will react in itself as a stimulus for self-advancement. His perspective should sound very familiar because it's something that we talk about on the channel and have talked about before in the comments. Should movies show us who we are, or should they show us who we could be? Black cinema tends to heavily skew towards the harshness of reality, but we are begging for the surrealism of space movies, superheroes, fantasy stories that we don't always see ourselves in. Now, vaudeville began to wane in the 1940s, with the 50s and 60s bringing in new and larger roles for Black stars. Nina Mae McKinney, James Edwards, and Ethel Waters were amongst the few. Still, many roles for maids and butlers, jazz singers, but Harry Belafonte, Eartha Kitt, Dorothy Dandridge, and Sidney Poitier proved to be commercially successful.
It is a long journey to this moment. I am naturally indebted to countless numbers of people.
Sydney's stars shown especially bright and predominantly white casts, with roles marked by morally upstanding, dignified, and progressive characters. And though the civil rights movement raged on in the background, the on-screen personas were seemingly unmoved by the turmoil surrounding them, or they were actively participating in the fight for the soul of the nation. Blaxploitation showed up as the continued fight in the 1970s, where Black characters were often portrayed as criminals bent on revenge against each other, but more often against white people. The original superheroes in the Blaxploitation era was revolutionary for Black audiences to see. Although shoddy production, movies like Shaft, Superfly, Cleopatra Jones put up massive numbers and increased energy in the Black Power movement, but they were often financed and pushed by white production companies such as MGM. Filmmakers out of UCLA's film school, called the LA Rebellion, were a group of indie artists who wanted to shift the guns, drugs, and women to questioning the consciousness of the community. And again, there was criticism, a very real divide between those who felt the films were doing more harm than good for the advancement of African Americans. Now, I probably need a counter on the screen for how many times Black art is criticized without there being any meaningful change, but I digress. The NAACP pushed Hollywood to stop Blaxploitation, and the rise of the blockbuster movie in the late 80s started to swallow up some of these indie makers. And then, a nuanced and groundbreaking picture emerges in 1989 with Spike Lee's Do the Right Thing, considered to be one of the closest representations reflecting race relations in America.
Yo, hold up! Time out! Time out! Y'all take a chill. You need to cool that out, and that's the double truth.
But the uniqueness of Do the Right Thing as a love letter to the joy and pain of Black people didn't insulate it from controversy. Many people protested after the release, suggesting it would incite Black audiences to riot. But the overwhelming response to the film in nominations for Best Motion Picture in Drama, Best Director, and Best Screenplay firmly put the breakout hit in stark contrast to other films such as Best Picture winner of 1989, Driving Miss Daisy. Wait, they picked Driving Miss Daisy over Do the Right Thing?
Oh, Miss Daisy? Lord knows you ain't no fool.
What the?
A few moments later.
Of course, from that point forward, Black film was nuanced, progressive, and multi-layered in its characters, directors, and writers, right?
Right? Wrong.
It was at this point in my research that I realized this argument has been happening for over 75 years.
Gene, calculator.
Correction, over 100 years. Let's go back to our first question. Why do we keep seeing stereotypes in movies again and again?
What's the answer?
Broad market appeal equals more money and more butts in theater seats. Quality representation and nuanced portrayals of Black life are often hamstrung by the perceived reception of a mainstream audience. It's what the fake Berry Gordy from The Temptations called the Copacabana.
What's this album supposed to do, besides piss off our fans? It gets us to the Copa, Paul. And that opens the door to all the rest.
All sounds like great money to me.
Broad appeal means you gain mainstream dollars but can lose the specificity of the target audience and their experiences. Spike Lee using a stretch of Brooklyn to film Do the Right Thing, or John Singleton making Boys in the Hood in South Central, it has this raw and real connection. These stories come out of lived experience and were told through that lived experience. These were movies made by Black people for Black people. Audience matters. So in solving the problem of crossover appeal, the outer packaging looks Black, but the core audience is whoever will pay for it. And how do you ensure it's profitable for the studio owners who are overwhelmingly non-Black? Limits and barriers. Welcome to the 90s and 2000s, a Black film boom that saw major wins for diverse storytelling, but also saw that old habits die hard.
Welcome to the party, pal!
Not a Black film, but a Christmas movie. And I stand by that. The rise of directors like John Singleton, Reginald Hudlin, Matty Rich, Darnell Martin, and Mario Van Peebles all rise through the ranks. It seemed the wall between Black filmmakers and white executive leadership was finally coming down. But as the decade continued, it was clear the industry was not ready for this wave of filmmakers to stake their claim just yet. Common objections like, we just can't get financing, or being blackballed if a film didn't put up the numbers of other projects was common for directors and producers during this time. And still now, you're in until you're out. So don't bother going up against the king or queen of the hill of the time, because we all know that we can only see so many Black artists at one time.
And my supremacy of Black Hollywood will be complete.
Amazingly, the industry would maintain that Black creatives did not have the same appeal to broader audiences as other groups. Black writers and directors and producers were being kept out of the spotlight, but they just kept showing up, making it impossible for these major studios to ignore them.
Well, there were white people in the movie, but there were no white leads in it. And you take a picture like Boys in the Hood. No one tripped about that because it was, a movie that dealt with like a violent thing, but regular thing, and it was business. Or we're the white people. Who's running that office?
And iconic films like Boomerang, Set It Off, Poetic Justice, Coming to America, Waiting to Exhale, Soul Food, Malcolm X, they're putting up great box office numbers, proving that Black stories were profitable.
Hollywood may be racist, but the color green opens a lot of doors.
There was always a sneaking suspicion that this golden era was going to come to an end. A glorious season it was, but limited funding and distribution for Black-led projects can mean that most of my non-Black friends haven't even seen half the movies on that list. Well, maybe you saw Coming to America, but let me know how many you've actually seen in the comments down below.
To America.
We also saw the emergence of several tropes that started to become synonymous with Black movies. The strong or angry Black woman trope, or the hypersexual thug, harkens back to the age of the blackface caricatures at the turn of the century. Even blockbuster films with Black supporting characters looked like progress, except they would play off the magical Negro trope, endowing Black people with affable and supportive natures to the lead character's journey. And before you say, do you just want Black movies all the time with Black people that look incredible in all situations?
First of all, she's Black.
No, That's not what I want. I'm very much asking myself alongside you, are these depictions a problem or just a barometer for issues in our community? The fact is that, yes, a lot of the films major studios get behind are lackluster and resonating with all facets of Black life. It feels very one-dimensional when several different hood, slave, biopic movies all come out depicting the struggle, the poverty, the brokenness in the Black community.
I was all excited about the possibilities that were to come. And 90% of the roles, like, we have this great role for you, and it was a maid. And we have this wonderful role, DA, and it was a maid.
But remember what I said? Audience matters. My litmus test of whether something is problematic or a barometer is the audience. Who is this for? Who does it benefit? When it has Black people behind Black stories, it can be a conversation, a dialogue with the audience. When it has majority white people behind Black stories, it's a monologue, a critique leveled at how we should behave. You picking up what I'm putting down? Dynamite! By the way, that clip was from Seth MacFarlane's Family Guy parodying Good Times.
What did he say?
Now, as we move into the 2000s, we see a pattern emerge where movies like The Butler, The Help, Green Book, 12 Years a Slave, The Blind Side, they're all about Black people, I think. And they all see commercial success at the box office because more than just Black people went to see those movies. I wonder why that was.
You know, the whole white savior thing?
But that brings us to the financial realities of Black Hollywood.
What they say is our movies do not sell overseas, but they don't promote our movies overseas. So how are you gonna sell something that you don't promote? So we have to break down more barriers.
Black movies don't make money. That is the long-held belief in industry circles, even now. We don't make movies about African Americans because no one's gonna watch those movies. They're not relatable and they're not successful, blah, 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 until they are.
I've heard everything. And what I hear keeps changing. Because they used to say it didn't sell over here. Then it does. Then they say it doesn't sell in the South. Then it does. Well, it doesn't sell in Europe. Then it does. So I just keep pushing.
The massive success of movies like Black Panther, Bad Boys, Hidden Figures, Us, Girls Trip, Straight Outta Compton, Get Out, and The Pursuit of Happiness proved this was not true. But myths are hard to debunk once they're widely held. Kind of like stereotypes. I came upon a Reddit thread that talked about the challenge of naming Black female-led movies that performed well overseas. I'm not gonna lie to y'all, it was pretty disheartening to read because these aren't even that many Black female-led movies to begin with, and marketing Black female-led films overseas feels like a very high obstacle since their appetite for Black culture is limited. They only see Beyonce, Afro hair, and TikTok dances. Now, getting back to the numbers, I was talking to a close friend recently, and she's an actress who's done both Broadway and movies, and recently she had a role for a major streaming service on a TV show. She gave me an example of a paycheck that she might receive for one episode of the show. So I'm gonna pull out my whiteboard for this because I want to walk you through this. I'm also gonna use my computer as the calculator, so bear with me. Let's say that for one episode, she receives $10,000, okay? Oh Lord, is it gonna be backwards? We're gonna find out. So she gets to do 6 out of 8 episodes. That's $60,000, right? Okay, the math is going okay so far. Lord help us all. She has an agent and a manager that negotiated her contract. Let's say she pays them 10% each. $12,000. Okay, that's 20%. So she is now going to be left with $48,000. She also has taxes because remember, actors are contractors, they're self-employed. So I'm just gonna go off of what Google said for self-employment taxes, which is 7.5%. That is $3,600. So now she is down $3,600. I can't do math. What is 48,000 minus 36?
20 minutes later.
So $44,400.
But wait, there's more.
Actors still have to pay for health insurance, PR, social media. If she shows up to a red carpet event or premiere, she's gonna need makeup, hair, wardrobe. So she's not roasted mercilessly online for not looking like a star of a TV show. And each of those can start anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a day. And this doesn't include accountants, lawyers, travel, security, auditions, headshots, housing, acting classes, all the other living essentials that we all pay for. So she could walk away barely breaking even depending on if she gets any more gigs. And I know we're all hurting in this economy, okay? But the toll it takes on actors of color, artists of color, it's so much deeper than we realize.
I'm just tired of working so hard, being gracious at what I do, getting paid a fraction of the cost. I'm tired of hearing my sisters say the same thing over and over. You get tired. I hear people go, you work a lot. Well, have to. The math ain't mathin'. And when you start working a lot, you know, you have a team. Big bills come with what we do. We don't do this alone. The fact that we're up is a whole entire team behind us. They have to get paid. So when you hear someone saying, oh, such and such made $10 million, no, that's not, that didn't make it to their account. Know that off the top, Uncle Sam is getting 50%.
The internet's reaction to this clip of Taraji sobbing on this podcast makes it clear that non-industry folks think beggars can't be choosers. If you're in Hollywood, either shut up and take it or go get more money elsewhere. But my illustration shows that a divide between those in Hollywood who will make money no matter what and the reality for many Black actors and producers.
I got the Oscar, I got the Emmy, I got the 2 Tonys. I've done Broadway, I've done off-Broadway, I've done TV, I've done film, I've done all of it. I have a career that's probably comparable to Meryl Streep, Julianne Moore, Sigourney Weaver. They all came out of Yale. They came out of Juilliard. They came out of NYU. They had the same path as me, and yet I am nowhere near them. Not as far as money, not as far as job opportunities, nowhere close to it. But I have to get on that phone and people say, you're a Black Meryl Streep. There is no one like you. Okay, then if there's no one like me, you think I'm that, you pay me what I'm worth.
The pay inequity, especially for women, is so bad that many of them are living paycheck to paycheck.
I haven't booked nothing since Euphoria. This is I thought my career was on the rise. After Euphoria, I thought I was good. It don't work that way. People are like, we need season 3. I'm like, I need season 3. I haven't paid my rent in 6 months. Y'all laughing and I'm serious. I called Taraji. She was like, used to it.
Now, this might be difficult to take seriously if you're not in the industry because the way that inflation works, baby, makes it very hard to feel bad for the rich and famous. But I implore you to try. As we answer the question of who's responsible for greenlighting these films, we can also answer the why for artists saying yes to less than ideal projects. Relevance equals money. At the center of most problems in the entertainment industry, the love of money is not one that we can legitimately ignore. For every Black masterpiece or nuanced story, there's 3 stereotypical pieces that pop up in its place. And it's not always outright coonery, but it is what they consider to be a safe bet. Hollywood struggles to have any imagination, so they have no problem marketing a movie using another movie as a template. That's why you'll see movies released that look just like the last thing that you saw. Or reboots that nobody asked for.
I'm a baby.
But many artists know they have to keep their credits up as to not fall into obscurity. More credits doesn't always mean better projects, and God forbid you get stuck in a loop of the same role. Then people act like they can't see you as anything else but that one guy who's in every movie. I mean, for real, seriously. Clifton Powell is literally in everything, right? That man just stay working. Now, out of sight, out of mind is the exact thing that many actors fear, because they really can't afford to not be working. If you're gone long enough, people start to associate you with failure or your last scandal, since the memory is short but the internet is forever. Take, for example, the way that reputation can cost Black actors everything.
First, I would like to thank the Academy for showing that it can be about the performance and not the politics. I want to thank Miss Hattie McDaniel for enduring all that she had to so that I would not have to. Tyler Perry and Oprah Winfrey, because you touched it, the whole world saw it. To my amazing husband, Sydney, thank you for showing me that sometimes you have to forego doing what's popular in order to do what's right. And baby, you were so right.
Winning the Oscar for Best Supporting Actress in Precious in 2010, Monique felt the very real effects of the Hollywood machine. Her performance as Mary Jones was enough to secure her win, even though she was later blackballed by the industry for her reluctance to campaign, and in the words of Lee Daniels, to play the game. Though Daniels apologized in 2022 for the feud, the damage had already been done to Monique's career. She's admitted to losing out on millions of dollars and opportunities due to people saying that she was difficult to work with.
And that's when he said, Mama, you've been blackballed. And I said, well, why have I been blackballed? And he said, because you didn't play the game. And I said, what game is that? And he was never able to answer that question.
You think it means you just didn't kiss enough during award season? Or?
You know, I never bought into being blackballed because the scripts and the offers never stopped coming.
Right.
They just didn't make sense.
Okay.
The offers that were being offered was as if I never won any awards.
Right.
And I just could no longer be willing to accept those low offers and those scripts, because at what point do you draw the line?
Right.
And this brings up a very interesting dynamic in the conversation, because when we talk about the self-inflicted wounds of Black Hollywood, We're not just talking about the powers that be that are outside of the community. We're also talking about the competition within Black Hollywood, where actors, producers, and artists are pitted against one another. So only a few can remain on top. Monique was blackballed because she had opposition from Black elites such as Tyler Perry and Oprah, both of whom were also executive producers on Precious. But blackballing is nothing new for Black creators, though their white counterparts won't always face the same career ruining simply because they have the privilege of being complex and nuanced human beings.
The labels of passionate and sort of like all these other things don't necessarily get applied to us in the same way when we execute the same behavior.
And we all know how to
But we are
navigate it.
keenly aware.
Yes. If you're able to speak your thoughts clearly and go to them with a cohesive argument, suddenly you're intimidating, it's going to be difficult, as opposed to being like, yo, what's going on? You know, this messed up. I have been punished for that in life. So it makes me usually not talk at all. I'm not a big talker anyway in terms of being on set. I just want to do it. And then somebody will tell me what, but I have to say that I've seen over and over again people be labeled certain things. And it's probably not true. They probably have ideas in their head, they're talking through it, and somebody said they are a problem.
One major struggle within the Black community and creative spaces is the ego and pride that keeps us from working together and making sure everybody eats, because we don't want to lose our position in the hierarchy. The hierarchy keeps studio heads rich and powerful, and Black Hollywood takes its cues directly from that and tries to apply it to their own spaces. It's the way that we can have two strikes exposing the crumbling Hollywood infrastructure that would say, this doesn't work. It's a challenge to obtain creative control and tell authentic stories, already at the expense of profit margins and ego-driven producers. Now you look at the examples of the folks who try to create their own opportunities, who fund their own projects. Unless they get buy-in from major investors or get a really great grassroots following, they may have to cut corners on marketing or distribution or budget to get themselves out there. But don't believe for a second that the industry isn't watching. When there's a film centering Black life and it captures the culture's attention, that relevance equals money. It's why in over 3,000 awards given throughout the Oscars history, only 23 have been awarded to Black actors.
It's time for Black filmmakers to rise up and admit that they know the only way to win Best Picture is by pandering to white Oscar voters.
Yeah. That's right. We know the rules. If we want to win an Oscar, we have to make a movie about Black people being oppressed.
Yep.
The question I posed at the beginning, who's responsible for greenlighting these projects? The answer? We all are. I mean, of course, we didn't make the movies. We might not have put up any money for the production or marketing, but the industry is studying our moves. What we talk about, what we watch on streaming, what we give our hate watches to, they're paying attention to it all. And white, Black, or person of color, we bear responsibility for supporting that which gets made. We may not be making the meal, but we are buying from the restaurant, if you catch my drift.
Let him cook.
From the comments on some of my other videos calling out poorly done media and poorly done representations, it seems that many of you feel the exact same way. So many comments lambasting the streaming services or the creatives involved with projects that we don't necessarily want more of. What do they want us to become by consuming this? The answer: it's the same as what they're doing to Black Hollywood as a whole. It's systemic, it's strategic, it's pervasive, and it's intentional. They want us to take this in and become more like what they're putting in front of our faces. Propaganda is a very real thing, and Hollywood is kind of elite at propaganda.
In Hollywood, too, is a propaganda machine.
Holding this industry accountable is a huge task, and the makers that are on the front end of this, that are doing this well, they know the challenges of telling these stories.
There is a market for depictions of Black life that are as broad and as deep as any other depictions of people's lives. A story with Black characters that's going to appeal to a lot of people doesn't need to take place on a plantation, doesn't need to take place in the projects, doesn't need to have drug dealers in it, doesn't need to have gang members in it.
Thankfully, there are so many who have actually answered the call to subverting expectations and building nuance into their storytelling. But they can't be the only ones. If we didn't see the short-lived diversity initiatives after George Floyd's murder or the reckoning that was supposed to happen in the industry, then we're seeing it now. Larger-than-life personas and superstars starting to wither away under the psychosis of this corrupt system. Much like the blackface caricatures that worm their way into the American psyche, so have the ideas that people don't matter as much as for the amusement of the general public. The common thread is that now we're sick of it. We don't accept that Hollywood sees us as pawns or playthings, reframing every good media representation to put us back in our place, to remind us of what they think of us. But we can divest. I feel very personally connected to this because I have not only participated as a performer, but I've also seen the impacts on my friends and the work that they put in to make quality stuff, to be seen as quality. And my personal identity as a woman of God, as a follower of Christ, it really does shield me from the lasting impact of this stuff on my heart, but it's still very hard. It is so much easier to become cynical or bitter or to have a chip on your shoulder, an ego about what you have to offer as a creator. But because I serve the ultimate creator, my way forward is not to be angry. My way forward is to take the power that I have, that God has given me, to first hold myself accountable to what I consume. What do I take in? What do I watch and listen to? What do I give my dollars and support to? And then after I've done that heart examination, I can then make really good decisions about the artists I want to support, the studios I want to get behind, and the investments I want to make with my time and money.
Until Black people are willing to invest their own money, we're going to have to settle for what we get.
Now, we cannot change this behemoth of entertainment just by wishing it so. The way forward is with that same hurt and frustration and the shame and embarrassment that we feel about what the industry reduces us to. We can use that to fuel positive representations of our community. We can support media that we know is good for the culture and not be so easily distracted by sex, money, drugs, drama, but actually look to the nuanced storytelling as our North Star. Most people can't even speak as freely as I'm able to about the brokenness of the industry because they're in it. They don't want to be seen as ungrateful for their opportunities. I'm pretty sure I've pre-canceled myself for much of the industry, so we just gonna let that ride.
Canceled.
But here's 3 things that I recommend to make sure that we get movies produced that actually represent us well. Number 1, celebrate quality Black-led projects and studios. There are several Black-owned production companies that you probably already know about, but there's also a ton that you may not know. So I'm going to put those down in the description box below. I encourage you to go check them out. And I really need us to blow up quality Black content, period. Not just the ones that come out in theaters, but if something you saw recently is good, tell a friend to tell a friend. If you saw something tucked away on Amazon Prime, Roku, I need you sharing it out. Matter of fact, start with this video. Send this bad boy far and wide so we can actually get this going. Number 2, put $1 into crowdfund. Listen, if you hear about an indie filmmaker trying to get their project off the ground, help them. If you don't have the money, you can push it to people that do. And if you got a rich auntie or a tax refund, set aside $100 to invest in companies that are producing some really good stuff. I actually have a production company called Redemption in Media that's working on its first short films this year. And my channel is really an extension of that. So you can hit the subscribe button, you can turn your notifications on, you can join my Patreon for free, or even start for $5 a month. Stay tuned for the upcoming fundraisers. And number 3, develop a collaborative mindset. One of the biggest challenges of creativity is isolation. When we create in silos, we miss the enrichment that comes from community. And not only does that plague the work that we do, it also keeps us in competition. So this is for my artists and creatives especially, but even if you're just a movie watcher, we have got to start thinking collectively. How can we work together to change the course of this huge ship that is going in a circle? If we were to break down those barriers to moving forward and develop the humility to yield our individual ideas to the collective, we could shift a lot of this on the ground level. You know, part of holding the industry accountable for poor media representation is holding ourselves accountable to the growth required. I am under no delusion that my little YouTube video will fix this problem, but I do think we all have to start somewhere. And this is how we start. If this video was helpful to you or just got your mind racing, I would love it if you would leave me your thoughts in the comments below. There is so much to talk about, and this is just scratching the surface, but I do read every single one of your comments, so I'm super grateful for you sharing those. And of course, if you watched this far, definitely, just so you know that you're really like a real one. Like, I really appreciate you, and I find it so meaningful that you're here. And I can't thank you enough for watching my little channel. It means a lot. So I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Bye now.